Daniel didn't think much of it at first. Just a playful bite on the back of his hand from the alien girl sitting across the table. Lyra laughed, her sharp little teeth glinting under the station lights. It was supposed to be a joke, right? But the way she froze afterward made his smile fade. Her bright eyes widened, her breathing quickened, and she whispered something in a language he didn't know. Then, in trembling English, she said, "Daniel, you don't understand. You're mine now." Round them, other aliens in the busy market began turning to stare. Some gasped, some backed away, and in the far corner, a shadowy figure leaned forward, watching him like prey. Daniel didn't think much of it at first. It was just a playful bite on the back of his hand from the alien girl sitting across the table. Lyra laughed, her small sharp teeth glinting under the station lights. It was supposed to be a joke, right? But then she froze, her smile faded, her bright eyes widening as if she had just made a terrible mistake. She whispered something in a soft, musical language Daniel didn't understand. Then, in trembling English, she said, "Daniel, you don't understand. You're mine now." He frowned, confused. "What? Mine? What are you talking about?" Round them, the small alien market seemed to change. A few nearby merchants glanced their way. Some backed away slowly. Others simply watched with quiet curiosity. In the far corner, a tall figure in a dark hood leaned forward, staring at Daniel like he had just become very interesting. Daniel chuckled nervously. "Okay, that's a weird joke." "It's not a joke," Lyra said softly, her voice almost shaking. She leaned closer so no one else could hear. "My people, when we bite someone like this, it's not play, it's a mark, a bond. Everyone here can sense it now. A bond." "What kind of bond?" he asked, trying to keep his voice light, but his stomach had a strange, nervous twist. Lyra hesitated, looking down at the table. "It means you are bound to me, for life." Daniel almost laughed again, but the way she said it didn't sound like romance or a silly tradition. It sounded serious, almost dangerous. "So you're saying that was a wedding bite?" he joked, trying to make her smile again. She didn't smile. Not exactly, but close enough for everyone to think so, and some will not be happy about it. Daniel glanced around. The hooded figure was still watching, unmoving. The air between the market stalls suddenly felt warmer, heavier. "Okay, let's say I believe you. What does this mean for me?" "It means," Lyra whispered, "you will be noticed. Some will respect you, others will try to take you away from me." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Take me away? Why would anyone want to?" Before he could finish, Lyra reached across the table and grabbed his hand tightly. Her eyes were scanning the crowd, her expression tense. "Don't look now, but someone has been watching us since the bite." Of course, Daniel looked. The hooded figure wasn't there anymore. His seat in the corner was empty. Daniel felt a strange shiver crawl down his spine. Maybe he just left. Lyra shook her head slowly. "No, he's closer now." Daniel followed her gaze and spotted the figure a few stalls away, pretending to browse a collection of strange glowing stones. But every time Daniel shifted, the man's head tilted ever so slightly in his direction. "All right," Daniel said, forcing a calm smile. "You're making this sound like a big deal, but I'm sure it's fine." Lyra didn't answer. She reached into the small satchel hanging from her shoulder and slipped something into Daniel's palm. A thin silver disc with alien symbols etched into it. "Keep this with you, no matter what happens. Don't drop it. Don't give it away." "What is it?" he asked. "It's proof of the bond," she said quickly. "If anyone tries to take you, you show this. Some will back away, others won't." Daniel stared at her. "You really believe this, don't you?" Her eyes met his, and for the first time since he'd met her, she looked afraid. "Daniel, I don't just believe it. I know it. That bite, it cannot be undone." He tried to think of something to say, but before he could, a soft chime came from his wrist communicator. Daniel glanced at it, expecting a simple trade notification or station update. Instead, glowing alien text scrolled across the small screen. The words shifted, rearranging themselves into English. "You carry the Queen's mark." The message said, "Run." Daniel looked up at Lyra, his pulse quickening. "Did you send this?" She shook her head slowly, her gaze locked on the communicator. "No, and if someone else did, they already know who you are." In the distance, the hooded figure had moved again, disappearing into the crowd. But Daniel had the feeling he wasn't gone, just waiting. Lyra leaned closer, her voice barely a whisper. "We have to leave. Now." Daniel followed Lyra through the crowded station corridors, his mind racing with questions. She moved quickly, weaving between travelers and market stalls, her small hand gripping his wrist as if letting go would mean losing him forever. The market's cheerful sounds faded behind them, replaced by the low hum of machinery and the echo of their footsteps. "I still don't understand," Daniel said, trying to keep up. "Why would anyone care about a bite? I mean, where I'm from, it's just weird flirting." Lyra glanced back at him, her eyes sharp and worried. "It's not just a bite. My people's mark carries history. It is older than my city, older than my world. Once placed, it links two lives together in ways outsiders cannot imagine." Her words only made his confusion grow. "Links? How? You mean like an emotional connection?" She shook her head. "More than that. Your presence is now tied to mine. Some will feel it, even from a distance. And there are those who will not allow a bond like this to exist between species." Daniel wanted to laugh it off, but the memory of that hooded figure kept playing in his mind. "So that guy back there, he wasn't just watching," she said quietly. "He was assessing you, deciding what you're worth." They turned a corner and entered a narrow passage lined with metal walls and blinking lights. Daniel realized this wasn't a public area. The air smelled faintly of ozone, and the sound of distant engines vibrated underfoot. "Where are we going?" he asked. "To someone I trust," Lyra replied. "But we must be careful. Even the walls here can listen." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "Listen," Lyra didn't explain. She stopped at a small metal door, tapped a series of quick patterns into a glowing panel, and waited. The door slid open silently, revealing a dim room filled with strange devices. Inside, an older alien with deep silver eyes looked up from a workbench. "Lyra," he said, his voice calm but surprised. "I didn't expect you back so soon. And with company." "This is Daniel," Lyra said quickly. "I marked him." The older alien froze, his eyes narrowing as they shifted to Daniel. For a moment, Daniel felt as though the man could see straight through him. "Marked." He repeated slowly. "Do you understand what that means, human?" Daniel gave a small shrug. "Not really." Lyra's been trying to explain, but it sounds more like an old story than a real thing. The older alien stepped closer, his gaze serious. "It is no story. The mark is recognized by ancient law. It means your lives are now bound. And more importantly, it means you are part of the royal line's claim." Daniel frowned. "Royal line?" Lyra nodded, her expression tight. "My family comes from a long line of rulers. I left that life behind, but the mark still holds its meaning. Now, anyone who wants power through me will want you." The older alien sighed, rubbing his temple. "This will bring trouble, Lyra. Already, I feel the attention on this station shifting." He walked to a small console and pressed a few buttons. A holographic display appeared, showing the station map. A red marker blinked near their location. "See? You've been tracked since you arrived in this sector." Daniel stared at the blinking light. "So what happens now? Do we just hide here?" "No," the older alien said firmly. "Hiding will only delay them. You need to leave before they seal the docks. There's a ship's mall. Fast, it can get you out unnoticed. If you move quickly." Lyra looked at Daniel, her voice softer now. "I didn't mean for this to happen. I didn't mean to bind you. But if we don't go, they'll make choices for us, and we may not like them." Daniel hesitated. His life had been ordinary up until today, trading goods, traveling between stations, enjoying the quiet. Now, he was being told that a single moment of playful contact had placed him in the center of something far bigger. The older alien handed him a small metallic band. "Wear this. It will mask the bond's signal for a short time. Long enough, I hope, to reach the ship." Daniel slipped it on, feeling the cool metal tighten around his wrist. "And if it doesn't work?" The older alien's eyes softened, but his words were serious. "Then you run, human, run. And do not look back." Lyra took his hand again, pulling him toward the door. Daniel could see the worry in her eyes, but also determination. She wasn't just trying to save herself, she was trying to save them both. As they stepped back into the corridor, the station's overhead lights flickered once, then twice. Lyra froze mid-step, her grip tightening. "They know we're moving," she whispered. "We have to reach the ship before they find us." Somewhere deep within the station, a low, echoing chime began to sound, slow, deliberate, and impossible to ignore. Daniel didn't know what it meant, but from the way Lyra's pace quickened, he could tell it wasn't good. Daniel and Lyra moved quickly through the dim corridors, the slow chime still echoing through the station. It was not a sound Daniel had heard before, but everyone they passed seemed to recognize it. Conversations stopped. Merchants pulled shutters. Over their stalls, doors slid shut. The once busy hallways now felt like an empty maze, lit only by the pale glow of wall panels. Lyra didn't speak at first, but her pace was urgent. Daniel could feel the tension in her grip as she led him through a narrow service tunnel that seemed far from any public route. The air was warmer here, and the hum of the station's systems felt louder. "They've initiated a sweep," Lyra finally said, her voice low. "That chime means they are searching for someone, and right now it's us." Daniel glanced behind them, half expecting to see the hooded figure again. "How do you know they're not after someone else?" She gave him a look that said she didn't have time for false hope. "Because I can feel it. The bond works both ways, Daniel. Just as I can sense you, others who know the old ways can sense the mark on you." The thought sent a shiver down his spine. "So I'm basically a walking signal." "For them, yes," she replied, "which is why we have to move faster." They emerged from the service tunnel into a wide docking ring. Normally, Daniel knew, this place would be crowded with cargo crews and travelers boarding ships. Now, the only movement came from small security drones gliding along the walls, their sensors scanning the air. Lyra pulled him behind a stack of sealed crates as to figures in dark armor walked past. Their steps were slow, purposeful, and their visors reflected the glow of the docking lights. Daniel held his breath until they were gone. "Who are they?" he whispered. "They call themselves the Veil Guard," she said softly. "They serve whoever offers them the greatest reward, and right now, you are worth more than any cargo on this station." Daniel didn't like the sound of that. "Worth? Why?" "Just because of this bond." "It's not just a bond," Lyra said, her gaze flicking toward the corridor ahead. "To some, it's a claim. If they can control the one I marked, they believe they can control me. And through me, a path to my family's influence." Daniel shook his head. "But you're not a ruler. You said you left that life." Her voice was steady, but there was a shadow in her eyes. "Some things follow you. No matter how far you run." They moved again, weaving through the docking ring until they reached a smaller, less used hangar. The ship waiting there was nothing. Impressive, small, weathered, with patches of mismatched metal along its hull. But it looked ready. "This is it," Lyra said. The whisper, "She's fast enough to outrun a patrol." Daniel stepped toward the boarding ramp, but paused when a faint sound reached his ears. The soft hiss of doors opening somewhere behind them. Lyra's eyes darted to the shadows at the edge of the hangar. The hooded figure stepped forward, no longer pretending to blend in. Daniel's heart jumped. "It's him." The figure stopped a short distance away, and for the first time, Daniel could see his face. His features were sharp, his skin marked with faint silver lines, and his eyes seemed to catch the light in an unnatural way. "You carry what does not belong to you," the man said, his voice calm but deep. "The Queen's mark is not for humans." Daniel glanced at Lyra. "Queen's mark?" She stepped forward, shielding him slightly. "It's done. You have no say in it." The man tilted his head, studying Daniel with an unsettling calm. "Perhaps, but there are those who will pay greatly to undo it." Daniel opened his mouth to respond, but Lyra's hand tightened on his arm. Without another word, she pulled him up the ramp into the whisper. The ship's interior was cramped but functional, filled with the faint scent of metal and old fuel. She moved quickly to the pilot's seat, activating the systems. The engines hummed to life, a gentle vibration running through the floor dot from the small side viewport. Daniel saw the hooded man still standing where they had left him, watching the ship. He didn't move to stop them. Instead, he simply raised one hand in a gesture Daniel didn't understand. As the hangar doors began to open, Lyra glanced at him. "Hold on. Once we're in open space, things will get different," the whisper lifted smoothly, gliding toward the gap in the hangar wall. Daniel watched as the stars appeared ahead, sharp and bright against the black. But just as they cleared the edge, an alert flashed on the console, an incoming transmission, marked with a symbol Daniel didn't recognize. Lyra's face went pale. "It's from the Veil Guard." Daniel swallowed. "Do we answer?" She didn't look at him as she reached for the controls. "We don't have to. They already know where we're going." The whisper drifted away from the station. "It's small." Engines humming quietly against the backdrop of endless stars. Daniel had never been so aware of the silence of space, broken only by the faint, steady pulse of the ship's systems. He stood near the viewport, watching the lights of the station fade into the distance. But his thoughts were far from calm. Lyra sat in the pilot's seat, her eyes moving between glowing displays. The tension in her shoulders hadn't eased since they left. Every so often, she would glance at one particular monitor, one Daniel didn't recognize, and adjust their course slightly, as if avoiding something unseen. "What's that screen for?" he asked after a while, pointing toward it. "It tracks the signal of the mark," she replied without looking at him. "As long as it's active, there are those who can follow us. The masking band on your wrist hides it for now, but the effect will fade." Daniel looked down at the slim metallic band. "How long do we have?" "Hours. Maybe less if they're skilled." She paused, then added quietly, "And they are skilled." The thought didn't sit well with him. "So where are we going?" "There's a small moon on the edge of this system," Lyra said. "Not many go there, too quiet for trade, too far from the main routes. We can hide there, at least for a short time." Daniel turned back to the stars, and then her voice softened. "Then we find a way to protect you, to protect us." They flew in silence for a while, the steady rhythm of the engines the only sound. Daniel tried to distract himself by studying the control panels, but he couldn't shake the memory of the hooded man on the station, the way he had spoken, calm and certain, as if Daniel's future wasn't his own to decide. After what felt like hours, a faint beeping broke the quiet. Lyra's gaze snapped to a new alert on the console. "They've found us," she said simply. Daniel moved closer. "How do you know?" She tapped a control, and a small projection appeared, a faint light moving steadily toward them from the edge of the system. "That's not a merchant ship. It's too fast, too direct. They know exactly where we are." "Can we outrun them?" "For a while," she said, increasing the engine power. The whisper shuddered slightly as the stars outside began to stretch in long streaks. "But we can't keep this speed forever. The engines will overheat." Daniel frowned. "Then we need another plan." She didn't answer right away. Finally, she turned toward him, her expression unreadable. "There is one way to hide completely, but it will feel strange. Strange how our bond. I can push it into a dormant state for a short time. It will make us both harder. 2 cents. But it comes with a cost." Daniel raised an eyebrow. "What kind of cost?" Her eyes met his. "We'll feel nothing from each other. No thoughts, no sense of presence. It will be as if the bond never existed, until I bring it back. But if something happens to you while it's dormant, I won't know." The idea made him uneasy. In just a short time, the bond had become something he couldn't fully explain. A faint awareness of her feelings, a quiet connection in the background of his thoughts. Losing it, even briefly, felt like losing a part of himself. Before he could answer, the projection updated. The pursuing ship was closer now, much closer. Lyra's hands moved quickly over the controls. "We don't have much time, decide." Daniel hesitated, then nodded. "Do it." She reached across the console and took his hand in both of hers. Her touch was warm, and for a moment, the faint thread of connection between them grew stronger, clearer. Then, slowly, it faded away. Daniel gasped at the sudden emptiness in his mind. He hadn't realized how much he'd grown used to her presence until it was gone. Lyra leaned back, her voice quiet. "It's done. Now hold steady. If they We're tracking us through the bond. They'll lose our trail. Outside the viewport, the stars shimmered in their stillness. The chasing light on the projection wavered, slowed, and finally stopped moving toward them. Daniel exhaled in relief. It worked, but Lyra didn't look relieved. She was staring at another screen entirely. "What's wrong?" he asked. Her voice was careful, almost reluctant. "The ship that was chasing us, it's not turning away. It's waiting." Which means they weren't the only ones following. Daniel felt the weight of her words settle heavily in the small cabin. If there was another ship, one they hadn't detected before, it could be anywhere. And as the whisper moved deeper into the quiet black, a faint shadow appeared just beyond the reach of the stars. Too still to be drifting, too silent to be harmless. The whisper floated in the silent dark, its lights dimmed to the lowest glow as it drifted without a set path from the outside. It could have passed for a piece of space debris, forgotten and harmless. Inside, however, every movement felt careful, every word measured, as if the wrong sound might give them away. Daniel stood near the forward viewport, his eyes straining to make sense of the faint shadow they had seen moments before. In the vastness of space, most shadows were illusions, tricks of light and perspective, but something about this one felt deliberate. It held its position just beyond the range of their scanners, almost as if it knew the exact distance at which it could remain unseen, yet still observe them. Behind him, Lyra worked at the secondary console, adjusting the whisper's passive sensors. She didn't want to send out an active scan that would announce their position instantly. Instead, she was trying to read the tiny variations in background radiation, the subtle disturbances that only a nearby object could make. "It's still there," she said quietly, her gaze fixed on the data feed. "Whoever it is, they're patient." Daniel turned toward her. "Could it be the same ship we saw earlier?" She shook her head. "No, the Veil Guard are direct. They chase until they catch. This is different. They're holding back, watching. Maybe they want to see where we're going, or who we meet." Daniel added. Her silence in response was more telling than words. The minutes stretched. Lyra guided the whisper along a slow, curved trajectory toward the moon she had mentioned earlier. The small, icy world drifted ahead, its pale surface catching faint starlight. From this distance, it looked peaceful, untouched. But Daniel had learned that appearances in space rarely told the full story. As they approached the moon, Lyra explained her plan in a low voice. "There's a network of old mining tunnels beneath the northern ridge. They've been abandoned for decades. We can land inside one of the surface access points. The walls will block most scans, and the temperature difference will hide our heat signature." Daniel nodded, though he couldn't shake the thought of the shadow behind them. "And if whoever's following decides to land too, then we'll deal with that when it happens," she said, not unkindly. The descent to the moon was slow and careful. Lyra guided the ship along the shadowed side of the ridge, keeping them hidden from the brighter regions where a reflection might betray their position. The old mining entrance was little more than a jagged hole in the rock, barely large enough for the whisper to fit through. Lyra eased the ship forward, metal edges scraping lightly against stone, until the darkness swallowed them. Inside, the tunnel opened into a hollow chamber. The walls were rough and uneven, dotted with the remnants of old equipment. Lyra set the whisper down on a flat section of rock and powered down the main systems, leaving only the essentials running. The hum of the engines faded, replaced by the stillness of the underground. For the first time in hours, Daniel felt a hint of safety, though it was fragile. Lyra moved to a storage compartment and retrieved two portable lamps, their soft glow pushing back the shadows just enough to see the interior of the chamber. "We should check the outer entrance," she said. "If someone decides to follow, we'll hear them before they see us." They walked to the mouth of the tunnel, their footsteps echoing faintly. From here, the view of space was narrow, framed by jagged rock. The stars outside seemed distant and unmoving. No sign of the shadow, no sign of pursuit. For a moment, Daniel let himself believe they had slipped away unnoticed. But as they turned to head back to the ship, a faint sound reached them, not the deep, mechanical thrum of engines, but a softer rhythm, like air shifting through an open corridor. It wasn't coming from outside. It was coming from deeper within the tunnels. Daniel glanced at Lyra. "I thought you said these mines were abandoned." "They are," she replied. Though her voice had lost some of its certainty, they followed the sound. Moving slowly through the dark passages, the tunnels twisted and branched, some narrowing until they had to move single file. The air was colder here, carrying with it a faint scent Daniel couldn't place, metallic, but not quite like rust. Finally, they stepped into another chamber. It was larger than the one they had landed in, and at its center stood something unexpected, a structure of smooth, dark material, unlike the rough stone around it. It rose from the floor in an elegant curve, its surface faintly reflective. Daniel approached cautiously. "What is it?" Lyra stepped closer, her eyes scanning the strange shape. "Not mining equipment. Not even from this moon, I think. This looks older." Daniel reached out, his fingertips brushing the surface. It was cool to the touch, and for a moment, he thought he felt a faint vibration beneath his hand. Like the slow beat of a heart, Lyra's gaze sharpened. "Don't touch it again." "Why? What is it?" She hesitated before answering. "I've heard of things like this, old beacons. They weren't built by humans. Some say they were left behind by the first travelers, before most worlds had names. They can store information, or send it." Daniel frowned. "Send it where? That's the problem. If it's still active, we might not be the only ones who know we're here anymore." The sound they had followed, that soft rhythm of air, came again. But this time it was accompanied by a faint pulse of light from the structure. The glow was slow, almost gentle, but unmistakable. Daniel looked toward the tunnel they had entered from, suddenly aware of how far they were from the safety of the whisper. "Do you think our followers saw that?" "If they didn't," Lyra said quietly, "they will soon." They stood there in the dim light, both understanding without saying it aloud, whatever this place was. They had just stepped into something far larger than their own escape, and somewhere beyond the mouth of the mine, in the cold silence of space, the shadow might be waiting for exactly this moment, under the pale glow of the alien moon. The camp had grown quiet. Only the soft hum of the protective barrier and the gentle rustle of the night breeze broke the silence. He sat by the edge of the fire, its orange light flickering against his face, while she stood a little away, her cloak fluttering like a shadow that refused to settle. She had not spoken much since the meeting with her people earlier that day. He had noticed how her eyes, usually bright and filled with challenge, now held something softer, something almost fragile. When she finally stepped closer, her voice was low, almost hesitant, as if the words she carried were too heavy for the night air. "You shouldn't be here," she said, though there was no real warning in her tone. He smiled faintly, not looking up from the fire. "And yet, you're still standing here with me." Her gaze lingered on him, searching his face for something she couldn't name. "You don't understand. You've changed things. Not just for me, but for them. Some will never forgive it. Others." She trailed off, as though the rest was too complicated to explain. He turned to meet her eyes then, seeing that glimmer of uncertainty. "Then let them think what they want. I'm not here for them." The flicker of a smile crossed her lips, so faint it might have been imagined, but her hand, almost unconsciously, reached toward his, hesitated and then withdrew again, as if remembering the weight of 1,000 unspoken rules. A distant sound carried through the air, something faint and rhythmic, like steps moving in the dark. Her head turned sharply, her senses attuned in ways his could never match. The firelight made the silver markings on her skin glimmer faintly, as if her very presence was speaking a language older than the stars. "They'll come looking," she murmured, but her tone held more resolve now. "And when they do, I will stand with you." It was not a promise spoken loudly, nor was it one made with dramatic gestures, but in that quiet moment, under the alien moonlight, it felt unshakable, like the first stone laid for a bridge no one else dared to build. And though the night still held shadows, he realized something. Whatever came next, it would no longer be her journey alone.